Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Work Your Career Wednesday. We're out and about, man. I had to get some coffee today to finish everything up, but I wanted to tell you, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this show. We have Michael Honeycutt of Honeycutt Southern. He is the leader and really the founder of one of the fastest growing rock and roll bands in America right now. His sound is unique, and he's just taking a lot of regions by storm. And I really think you're going to find his story incredibly, not only interesting, but I think you're going to, it's a blessing. It's an incredible blessing. So stay tuned for that. You are going to be so glad you tuned in today. And of course, we got to talk about White Husky Films. If you need anything done, podcast, a conference, anything involving video, a music video, anything, get in contact with White Husky Films. The number is on the screen, or you can go to the website www.whitehuskyfilms.com. I'm telling you, you'll be so glad you did. Dream, create, record in that order. Call him up. All right, without further ado, please make welcome the one and only Michael Honeycutt of Honeycutt Southern.
Everybody, welcome to another edition of Work Your Career Wednesday. I'm Bradley Clark, and I am telling you, I'm so excited about our guest today. He is a professional marketer by day, a rock star by night. He is doing such amazing things. His band, Honeycutt Southern, is gaining national renown, regional, local. I mean, this guy is everywhere, and his band is doing amazing things. He's got an incredible story that I know will inspire all of you. I tell you what, I'm going to show you some of the cool stuff I have from Honeycutt Southern in a minute, but without further ado, let me introduce the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Michael Honeycutt. Mike, welcome to Work Your Career Wednesday.
Thank you for having me, Brad. I mean, heck of an introduction, dude. I need you as the hype man in every show. You know, I'm just going to bring you to the mic.
Hey, I'm available.
Oh, that's great. Well, you got a job.
Thank you. Oh, excellent. Mike, I have just been so I'm inspired and impressed, and just really your friendship is amazing, and I cherish it. I wanted to bring you on the show today for a variety of different reasons, but especially in these times, people are looking for something real, right? And you about as real as it gets. And if you don't mind, Mike, tell us a little bit about you and your story.
Yeah. Humble and ugly beginnings, and quite a broken road. But I'm blessed, to condense a story down. I grew up in the broken home, and parents, in trouble with the law, and dealt with that sort of thing at a young kid, and seeing a lot of turmoil, a lot of fights between my parents, and grew up around law enforcement, and not in a good way, and sort of seeing how that can tear apart a family unit apart. Unfortunately, I'm an only child, so internalizing those things, sort of having to deal with that by myself, bouncing around. Moved a lot, lived in some group and foster homes, and was raised by a community, essentially, until I got to be a little bit older. I did live with my father, and I finished high school living with him, and it was a blessing, but I had a child at a very young age. I love to tell the joke, but it's a real joke. my people laugh, but my son was at my high school graduation. It's about as redneck as it can be, but it was what it was, and I kind of repeated the cycle of my parents and brought a child into a home that wasn't ideal, and dealt with that as a very young man, having to go out and survive with no assistance, obviously, because my parents weren't around, and grow up and be a man and be a father. So after high school, I worked. I was sole proprietor for a while, worked some odd jobs, and then I put myself through school. My dream school was University of North Carolina. So you talked about me being a marketer. That was a school that I wanted to go to from a very early age. Huge Michael Jordan fan growing up. And first went to community school, community college, and from community college went on to University of North Carolina, finished my bachelor's degree. Had some really cool opportunities while I was there. I had a really neat internship with the Rams Club, which is their donor program. While I was there, I was exposed to a lot of great minds, and some people who helped me on the business end. And so I took the business experience and the stuff that I'd learned from being a sole proprietor and owning a business, and I took that with the education, and I came out of college with a sort of a more holistic view of how business works, relationships, and just kind of been going forth since. Marketing is what I gravitated towards. I love storytelling. I love building brands. Again, relationships, product. That's my bag. I really enjoy it. So that's what I've been doing since I got out of school.
Well, I got to tell you one thing that is really, it's really amazing to me that you have so many stories to tell, through your music, and you're getting into a business that is so, we've talked about it at length, at nauseum, really, where, this business is very, very difficult. How is it going into a business that is inherently, a closed door? People in the music business talk about, I discovered this person, I discovered that person, but really it's a whole lot of work and a whole lot of pain, a whole lot of suffering. So tell me, how does your experience growing up, really bootstrapping yourself, having to go through all of this, how do you think that prepared you to go into a business that just doesn't want to let anybody in?
Yeah. So I don't take no very well. But let me just back up. A lot of what got me through my childhood and formative years and even to today, and I referenced the broken road, and the other line in that song, that famous song, is God bless the broken road, right? So, I'm a big believer. I'm not perfect, but I believe in my Lord and Savior, and so that has helped me. It has been something that's just been a rock for me. And so back to the music business, and what you're talking about, it. I've seen things work out for me in my life that weren't supposed to work out. When I was in business by myself, I was too young. At 20, 21 years old, I was dealing with contractors and people that were 20 years my senior. I was too young to be too good or to do any project, and I had to prove myself over and over and over again. That's not unlike music. Music is the same way. It's constantly banging on doors, trying to impress upon somebody, like, look, I've got something that you're going to want, that you're going to like. And that's very hard because, people are hive mind. People are, again, back to the relationships. People have relationships established, and they're very guarded and gated about who gets to kind of come in. It's just like any other sort of established business. You kind of have the good old boys. And that's something that I have been fighting my entire life. And I think that God put that in me and allowed me to go through all the things that I went through, really being sort of the ugly duckling or the one that wasn't picked. That's kind of how I felt as a kid. I was the one where everybody else got to have a normal family, was able to sort of have more of a traditional path in life. I didn't have that. And I had to learn to make my own way, as you said. So it's just, I don't know how to take no for an answer. So I just constantly keep going and keep going and keep going until finally, and really the reward is to me. And I look at people like Michael Jordan, behind me, and even there's many others that tell the story of to be successful is to be fanatical. And a lot of people who they don't really understand that. They think like this guy's got to be crazy, he's like obsessed over something. I believe you have to have that obsessive personality if you want to be truly successful in life and break barriers. And people never really, like, while they're going through it, while they're in real time, they're looking at you like, man, this guy's crazy. But it's always like after the fact where they're like, wow, okay, this guy they were breaking barriers. They're going beyond what people were telling them. They were breaking past limitations. So to answer your question in a very long way, my upbringing, my faith, all that prepared me for this battle, this constant battle, because I grew up in turmoil. So this is nothing new to me, to be around conflict and to constantly have to deal with things the odds are not in my favor. That has prepared me for this. So yeah, I get down sometimes and I deal with situations and I have to sort of pull back and, I'm like, gosh, why can't I do a certain thing, or why won't they listen, or whatever it is. But then I'm right back on the horse again. So it's a good, it's success is a journey, and I actually enjoy it. I live for it. Yeah.
So how does that impact you as a leader? You said that when you were going to school, you had the opportunity to be around a lot of great minds, and so you've been able to glean, not just from your experience, but you got a chance to really glean a lot of wonderful things from a lot of great people. So as a leader, how does that play in, your experience there, your experience listening to these other leaders?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost is kind of expanding your mind and understanding that you don't know everything. Being a leader doesn't mean that you do know everything and that you have all the answers. It's about being bold and fearless and able to step forward into what you believe in, I think is what being a leader is. And also surrounding yourself with like-minded people and people who are willing to, for lack of a better term, go to war with you, who believe in your dream or believe in what you're trying to accomplish. I can tell you, being at Carolina, especially in the university system as it is today, you're around a lot of thinking that isn't in line with your thinking. I was a poor, I'm not afraid to say it, probably white trash kid from the rural area of North Carolina. And when I went to North Carolina, now Chapel Hill, if anybody knows about North Carolina and Chapel Hill is a little bit hoity-toity, and it's a very educated community. A lot of scholarly, great minds there. Duke's down the street, and there's a lot of great thinking, a lot of innovative thinking. And then here I am, I'm like, man, I made a long way. It's a long journey, but it doesn't mean that just because these people had different thinking, it didn't mean that you're intimidated by it. I sort of take it in, and I like opposing viewpoints. Even when I don't agree with somebody, I will try to understand where they're coming from and why they believe that. It's just the same thing as me. I'm seeing the world through the lens that I grew up in and what I was around. And unfortunately, a lot of things that I saw they were not correct. And there's those behaviors you try to learn past, and you try to think beyond sort of the boundaries that you have been confined to. College was good for that. But what I did not allow college to do was take my identity away. So I took a lot of those things, took a lot of the education, but the Southern boy, made me what I felt like was my identity, those core ethos. I stayed true to that.
Really interesting. More often than not, we're hearing a lot about, the way, things are today, where you have somebody that has been brought up with those core beliefs, and they, I don't know, like pounded into that person, to that kid, and they go off and, they kind of become somebody else. How let me put this, and you say, because my very next question, it's so funny. My very next question was, did that intimidate you? Yeah. Going from, the trailer to the palace, if in a big old dusty roads, if you will, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're saying that it didn't intimidate you so much as, I want to know what they know.
Yeah. I mean, let me tell you a funny little story inside of this that I think will kind of explain to you the way I work. I remember sitting down, because I met my wife. We didn't get married till I was at North Carolina, but I met my wife before, and I remember telling her, I'm like, look, because I grew up a Michael Jordan fan, big Carolina basketball.
Yeah.
If you grew up in that area, you'd understand how important college basketball is, in that part of the country.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's like high school football in Texas.
Yeah. I remember getting there, and I told her, I was like, I'm going to figure out how to get involved with this athletic program, and I remember I took this internship that paid like nothing hardly, with the Rams Club, and it dealt with a lot of the facilities. So like all the game day relationships, so the PR and the pre-events that they would have for donors and stuff like that. I took this internship with them, and I hadn't been working but a few weeks, but I was trying to pick up every shift, because it was about those relationships. Because I always say, like, I might not be the smartest, but you ain't gonna outwork me, and that's something that's very Southern. My father, told me, like, whatever you're gonna do, you got to do it to the best of your abilities, right? And so, never too proud to do the smallest and menial jobs. And so the craziest thing happened. I had been working there a few weeks, and what I wouldn't say was entitled, but I would say a young lady who didn't need the opportunity, came from better means than me. I remember we were working a game, and she had a really a higher paying position within this internship. And it was very competitive. And she just looked over at me and she said, I'm going to leave, and I want you to take my spot. And that was all it was to it. And then that became a really lucrative job for me while I was in school. And that gave me access to all these insider events. And then there I was with all the athletes. So football, basketball, baseball. I mean, befriending all the people that you see on TV, and many of these often had pro careers, right? And so it was funny. I tell my wife these days, and I used to have a colleague that I worked with, and he used to always say, Mike, you always seem to find yourself in the right place at the right time. And I say, really, what it comes to, and this is not trying to be braggadocious, it's just relationships. I tell people all the time, just talk to people, get to know them. You never know what doors will open for you just by talking to people and being relatable. And that's all it was with this young lady who offered me this position. We didn't have any prior friendship, or, it was just having known each other for a few weeks. She watched how I worked. I worked hard. She watched that I was agreeable. I wanted to learn and pick up on things. And there was no try out for me. It was, do you want it? And that has been a lot how my life has gone. It's been about working hard, learning, and being a sponge, because we were talking about earlier about being intimidated. It can be intimidating to be around somebody who's super smart, but I think it's also very rewarding to sit there and just soak it up, and because you're going to use these pieces that you pull from them. It's going to help you in your life. And that's what I did when I was at Carolina. I took the time that I was there to learn so much and to make the relationships that I could while I was there, and to make the best of it. Because again, I was in college at 26. I was a late bloomer, as far as being in school. I was a non-traditional student. So at 26, my worldview was much different than a 21, 2-year-old who was, going into their junior or senior year in college. I had already worked full-time into the world. I had already seen, I had a kid.
Had a business. You had a kid.
Yeah. I had owned a house, sold a house. I had done a lot of grown-up things that a lot of these kids, not their fault, they just hadn't gotten there yet. And so I had seen these things. And so my worldview was like, man, taking that business knowledge and then also knowing that I'm always the underdog, I'm always the one. And so I'm going to do a lot of things that I think people don't realize. Like, people really don't work on relationships anymore. Mm-hmm. People don't think, you look around you, there's not a lot of pride in work being done, right? Like you go in the service industry, it's very hard to see people. You don't see a lot of it. There are a few, and they stick out when they take pride in what they do. Mm-hmm. But that stuff, you stick out, when you do those sorts of things, and people pay attention. And that has been how I have been afforded the opportunities that I've gotten.
I love that. And that's, a lot of what this show's about, is to help people get a job, keep a job, and then move forward. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, I'm glad that there's room for a show like Work Your Career Wednesday, for example, but I hate that there's a need for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
It's one of those things where it's like, man, people go and they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for, the certificate that says, hey, I'm in the club. Mm-hmm. But a lot of what they're learning, now, and I think it was different when I was in school, it's same with me, I went a little later too. And so your worldview is drastically different than it would be if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So, part of the reason this whole thing exists is to help people get there. And I just wish that when and I hope some universities and some university students are watching this, the what you're saying is so true. It's so true. You cannot get anywhere without relationships, right? It's just so incredible what you're saying. So really, as a professional, how does that incorporate into your storytelling, whether it's, selling a product, selling a brand, or letting people know about Honeycutt Southern?
Yeah, that's a great question. From the marketing side, a lot of what I've been doing the last several years of my career is product marketing. So really, you're telling a story, and it's not unlike in sales, where they like, don't sell the feature, sell the benefit, right? How can this help somebody? Marketing the same way. I'm looking at why, right? Like, why is this compelling? Why do you need this? how does this benefit your life? You know, the question you always come to is why. And it's the same thing in people relationships. You know, it's why, and it's symbiotic. Like, people have to work together, right? Like, you know, I hear it a lot. Like, you never want like one way relationship, because, you know, it's not a relationship. Somebody's burning the other.
Yeah.
You have to work together. Any friendship, marriage, working relationship, there's a value that both sides bring and a benefit. So from the marketing standpoint, that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm selling a story based on how a product, tangible, or it could be software or whatever. I've done a lot, and in my line of work, I've done mostly business to consumer. So I'm speaking specifically about thinking about where a person is in their journey, right? So whatever the product is, whatever the solution is, who are they? When would they encounter this? And then how is it going to make their life better in some meaningful way? And it's a very condensed marketing lesson, but just getting right to the point of identifying who I'm talking to and what is their trigger point. You know, it's the same thing in music.
Mm-hmm.
From the band side, I've taken sort of my marketing knowledge and, you know, you can be a data hound, right? You can get on Facebook, metrics, you can do the Instagram stuff, you can Twitter, and you can get in and look at a lot of the social stuff, and you can run ads and you can target people and you can find out who your audience is. I will tell you that stuff is effective. But what I have found, the most effective marketing is still that one-on-one relationship. You know, when I come in and I talk to, or it could be like me soliciting a booker or a promoter that I know is looking for specific venues or promoting show. You know, it's just the conversation. If I just have a messenger contact, I start there. If it's a phone number or an email, whatever, however that medium comes, and I talk to them, and then, you know, saying, look, here, the first touch point is, look, here's my press kit. This is, you know, all of our collateral out there, right?
Right.
But then it's like, hey, look, you know, if I can come in with a story and say, look, name a band, you know, that I feel like our band will resonate with their audience, that we can piggyback with, and we can provide good value. Again, going back to the value, you kind of catch these people off guard, because you're sort of doing, and this is kind of a secret, I guess, because I don't see a lot of this going on now, but you kind of catch these promoters and bookers off guard, because they really aren't prepared for you to come with the data, like the sort of like, hey, you know, the benefit of it.
Yeah.
I'm not just trying to solicit my band, but here's why we would fit. And I can show you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And the other thing too is, you know, and I've been in music a long time. You know, everybody is the hero of their own story, but typically they don't have the you know, the data to sort of back it up. And here you are, you know, you guys play, and you have whole families coming out to see you guys play that have only heard of you or saw you on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, you know, and then when they get to meet you, I mean, you're creating a memory. There's that, you know, so, you know, talking to the bookers, talking to the promoters and all of that, you know, you're coming with it's a line they don't see very often. I would venture to say, which is really, really cool. I mean, I'm curious, you know, you were in foster homes, right? How many were you in, would you say?
I was just in two.
Just in two. I mean, you know, there's just in two, you know, I mean, that's a big deal just to be in one, you know, and there's some people that have been in several, you know. Let me ask, did music help you get through those times where, things seem so bleak. Was it music that helped you get through?
Yeah, absolutely. So plot twist, I didn't really listen to it. I mean, I grew up listening to classic rock from my father. I would hear things.
Yeah.
I was not I wouldn't say I was like on to rock early on. I was more into a lot of soulful music, R&B, and
yeah.
I was fortunate in the homes that I lived in were strong faith-based homes.
Yeah.
One of the homes that was most memorable to me, I was in a really small town in Georgia, and this family, gosh, there must have been 6 or 7 of us boys there, and we were all around the same age, and they had a piano, and the parents would play, church hymnals, and then we were also very, very regular churchgoers, Wednesdays, Sunday nights, and then if there were Saturday night functions, I mean, you know about it, right? I mean,
I know all about
always
it.
a thing, but what was beautiful about it is all that stuff kept my mind off of the storm that was around me. Music. At that time, it was a lot of gospel songs, and that stuff allowed me to escape because I could just focus on really what the words were saying. A lot of those words are derivative of scriptures, right? And so you're taking those scriptures and you're ingesting them in a different way.
Well, it's really interesting you say that. There's have you ever heard of hyperlexia?
No.
So hyperlexia is when I think I'm saying that right. I'll have to ask Erica if that's the right one, but it's when you see words and you see them, you can read them, but they don't mean anything. Right? Mm-hmm. So, you could be singing, I don't know, anything, and it could be pitch perfect, but the words don't resonate. And so you don't really comprehend them, and it's really interesting. I find that, there's a lot of hyperlexic stuff going on these days. You know what I mean? Where the words don't, I mean, they're pretty, but they don't mean anything. And here you are in an incredible storm, and music, blessed assurance, that whole thing is what's keeping you sustained.
Yeah.
And from a very young age. I just love that. I love that. Please continue. I just had to say that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I've learned something new. See, you always got to be listening. You never know what you're going to absorb. I mean, all I was going to say is to fast forward to today.
Yeah,
I do the same thing. I remember those sort of it was like an informal lesson, but much like a lot of Christian songs you would hear, they pull on the Bible, they pull on lessons learned.
Yeah.
I try to put that into my music. And the craziest thing is now I have cheeky songs, and then I've got more songs that are deeper and do, you're like, man, this guy's definitely, this is definitely coming from, it's biblically inspired, right?
Yeah.
Those songs, whenever I'm struggling, I can say a prayer and I'll say, hey, Father, lead me to somewhere where I need to go, to be inspired. It's the same thing as, I know many people can relate, but sometimes you can just crack the Bible and you'll just find something. And you're like, oh my gosh, that is what I needed to see.
That's right.
It's the same way when I'm writing music. Sometimes I'm not inspired. You know, I don't take any credit for anything anyway, but I'm not inspired at the moment or whatever. And I need it to go somewhere. I got to be honest, when I first started writing songs, I thought about how it would be perceived. Would I be a Christian artist? Would I have to be perfect? Do I have to like match, one to one what I'm singing about? And you're always, and it's funny because that is the problem of a Christian person anyway. Like you're constantly looking outward, seeing how the world is looking at you. But then I let it go. And because the other thing that I grew up and what I took beauty in is, and I'll tell you, just like I told a pastor, that same pastor of that church that I visited when I was in that particular home, and he wanted to know my story. And he asked me straight up one time, he just said, I don't know, I guess I was 12 or 13 years old. And he said, I'm just so shocked you're not sad and you're not, just sullen, right? And just upset. And I said, man, God chose me to go through this. I felt special, at 12, 13 years old. I said,
gosh,
there's a reason that he put me through this. You know what I mean? And it touches me right now. And I'm sorry if this wasn't supposed to go this way, but I just remember telling him that. And to this day, just being so proud because, man, there's a reason why I went through that. There's a reason why I had the attitude that I had. I mean, man, some real stuff. I mean, I remember visiting my mother in prison, and she said the same thing, but the pastor wasn't trying to be, it wasn't an ill thing. He was just genuinely curious, because most people would respond that way. My mother said the same thing. She said, I'm surprised you're not on drugs, or, you haven't taken to some bad life, like a lot of people do. They respond in that way to try to cope as some mechanism. I didn't do that. I said, man, I was chosen to go through this, and it's going to make me stronger. But that was because I had already had dealings with Christ at a young age, right? And I was like already trying to understand what was going on and what I needed to do. And I had already had, again, I'm going to bring the word, a relationship. I had a relationship that wasn't, so this is crazy because sometimes I say things and I come back around to why I said it. Remember I was talking about earlier about a one-way or a two-way relationship. And a lot of people have one-way relationships and they're like the host and they're just consume.
Right.
A relationship with our Father is a two-way relationship. We can't just consume. We need to put back in too. I figured that out at an early age, that if I gave myself to him and turned over myself to him, that he would give back to me. And no matter how flawed I was, how imperfect I was, he was going to look out for me. And so I know that no matter what happens musically, we're dealing with a promoter, a booker that's getting on my nerves. It could be a bad boss. It could be somebody, a colleague that you're working with. I never stopped loving people. I never stopped loving the relationship, because you just don't know what you're going to get out of some relationship. It could be the very person that you least expect is going to offer you something or put you in a position to excel. So I kind of went off there, but that is something that I learned at a very early age. And now he's in deep thought.
I was chosen to go through this. Mike, I've known you for a while now. And that's fresh bread, bro.
Yeah.
That's fresh bread, man. I've never heard it put that way. We live in a day and age of victimhood. Whoever is the biggest. I'll never forget. I remember seeing this guy, and boy, he had some horrible testimony, and it was terrible. And I could almost see the wheels turning of people going, man, you know, I don't have a testimony like that. Well, that's pretty bad. And it's like, look, I've never heard it put the way you just put it. I was chosen to go through this. I feel great. This is amazing. I mean, that's something that so many people need to hear right now in this day and age, where whoever is the biggest victim gets the biggest piece of pie.
Yeah.
And so, and you know, to the point where people are creating victims, you know what I mean? They're creating themselves as victims. And so here you are at 13 years old telling a pastor who just can't believe you're not, you know, on his counseling list. I can't believe you're not sad. Your response was, I was chosen for this. My goodness. I mean, that kind of blows all the questions I had out of the water. You know, we can go on a whole show on that.
Yeah. I mean,
and so when and how that relates, I mean, cut you off, but
no,
how, and really get the crux of it, that's how you conduct business. That whatever adversity is going on, you were chosen for this.
Yeah. You know, I mentioned earlier, you know, my childhood and being around chaos and being comfortable sort of in it. There's a lot of noise, you know.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, you said it. I mean, it just, I know that having gone through all that, and being used to conflict that a lot of people just never see. I mean, to be honest, you know, a lot of people just don't see this kind of stuff, and I'm glad. And a lot of people see worse. But being able to look at it in the way that I did, it just it helps me flip the switch, I guess. You know, if I'm kind of searching for words, but I'm flipping the switch from deciding I'm going to let this wear me down, or I'm going to use this, you know. And I tell my wife all the time, we have to be a human, like you're human. So you're allowed to have that moment where you're down and you're hurt. That's what makes us human. We're not machines, but then it's how you respond, right? And there are so many people that I have seen, whether they know it or not, but like athletes and stars and the people that we've seen, you can look, and you don't have to look very hard. You can find these individuals who just shine in adversity. I mean, and whether they attribute it to God or not, I look at them and I say, I see you. Like that.
Well, how often, but 9 times out of 10, that's what they attribute it to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, by me doing this show, I've been able to talk to a lot of people, and a strong spiritual foundation is key to their success. Absolutely key, you know, not just in sustaining them, but, you know, in the sort of whole of the plan. You know, we're going to take a break here in a minute. When we come back, we're going to talk more to Mike Honeycutt. We're going to learn even more of his story, and we're going to talk about Honeycutt Southern. All right. That's Mike, good. Stay with us. You stay with us too. We will be right back.
White Husky Films. Dream, create, record. We create ads and promos for your business. We can promote your video on television, Facebook, YouTube, Hulu, and more. We do a full Google SEO analysis for you with any plan. Call us today at 305-744-1444 or visit our website at whitehuskyfilms.com. White Husky Films.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Work Your Career Wednesday. And we're over here talking with the one, Mr. Mike Honeycutt of Honeycutt Southern. Mike, again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
You know, we're really getting in, you know, you're really digging deep into your story. And man, there's so much there, and I want to go, you know, we can go deeper into it. In the last segment you said, you know, the pastor came, youth pastor, or was it the youth pastor or pastor, or what was
he was just the pastor? Yeah,
he was the pastor of the church, and he comes up to you and he just can't believe that you're so happy, you know, and that's incredible, you know. Man, I want to get into that. There's so much I want to get into, Mike. It's such a rich history. Let's talk about Honeycutt Southern. You know, what's the genesis? Sort of, how did that whole thing get started?
Yeah,
we're talking way back. Let's talk. How did the whole thing get started?
Oh yeah. First of all, I'm from North Carolina, where I lived most of my life. I moved down to Houston in 2017. And coming down here, spent a couple years trying to find the right fit, trying to find musicians to play with. You know, to go back in the timeline a little bit, I had been playing music, started off in church, playing guitar when I was 16, played in like the youth band, you know, every Wednesday night. And then kind of graduated up into Sunday services. And then I formed at the time, emo hardcore was in. This is like early 2000s, right? And so then a rock band with some kids.
You're going to youth group after listening to, you know, what Death Cab for Cutie.
Yeah, there you go. So
there you go.
You know, we started a band. It was an originals band with some guys I went to church with and some people who went to various Christian schools in the area. And so we all had similar upbringings, and we also were very rebellious in the sense that we were like, you know, we were all like 20, 21 at the time. So, you know,
it's all angsty.
Yeah. And we would have these deep philosophical, biblical conversations, you know, trying to, at least we thought they were philosophical. I mean, it probably meant nothing. Sure. But anyway, going back to where I am now, I hadn't been playing music very much at all throughout, you know, going to college. I took a break from it, and I had just kept an acoustic guitar. I'd sold off most of my gear from those earlier days, and I had an acoustic guitar, and I would just pick it up every once in a while and play. But I was not writing. I was just playing music that I had already, you know, covers and things like that had already been written. Anyway, after moving here, I had this emptiness in me, and I could not describe it. I just remember thinking like, man, something is missing. There's a hole, you know, and it was just eating me. And I just sat down and I just started making a commitment to play in regularly. And after a while, I started writing my own songs. Around the same time, I wanted to start playing with people. So I put out ads up, and I played with over a course of years. I started writing what has now become a lot of Honeycutt Southern songs. I started writing songs and playing with various musicians. But at the time, I just thought of myself as a guitarist. I never really sang, even though having sung in youth. The youth band at church, you know, I was up there singing Chris Tomlin, Holy is the Lord, you know, but I just never really thought of myself as a singer, you know. I always thought of myself as a guitar player. And so I was writing all this music, and I kept thinking I would have this sound in my head of who the guy was going to be, you know, who's going to sing it. Fast forward to about 2021, I believe, is right after the pandemic started selling out. People wanted to get together and play again. I had already at that time had probably 5 originals that I had written, recorded, had hired players all over the internet to help me, and had like real masters of these songs, of me doing everything. I found some guys to play with, and we made a run with it, and I started writing more and more and more. Fast forward, we're a 4-piece today as it is. We've done a lot playing around Houston, but the songs, they are, going back to our previous discussion, a lot of my upbringing, really pulling on things I saw, and then also political events that we're kind of living around, and then injecting again my worldview,
interesting,
into those songs.
There's this one song that you have I just absolutely love, Southern Comfort.
Yeah.
Oh man, that song just hits you. It really, I mean, from my perspective, and I just love your music. I absolutely love it, and I can relate with all of it. Southern Comfort, Rev Me Up. I mean, well, you got one coming out. Is it Get My ASS in Gear?
Yeah, that'll be one that comes out in the future.
Okay. And then I just love that when you guys play, cause you've gone through some personnel changes. I mean, you've played with some great people, but I just absolutely love those records, man. I mean, God Bless the Southern Man. I mean, that was, we've gotten away from yes or no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, that kind of thing. And I mean, it just, your music just really touches, you listen to it. I remember I was at this one show you guys did, and there was a woman in the audience that started looking up. She didn't know who you guys were. And so she started looking up your lyrics, and she was just blown away. You can only write that kind of stuff coming from an honest place.
Yeah.
So do you, when you're writing, do you take into, I mean, it's your story. You're essentially writing your story.
Mm-hmm.
So good, bad, or indifferent, you could agree with lyrics and maybe you don't agree with them, but this is your story. So do you ever take into consideration, well, somebody might get offended here, they get offended there, or maybe they're going to misunderstand it, or you just write it and say, this is the way it is, like it or lump it, this is what I went through?
Yeah, it's pretty much the latter. I mean, I mentioned earlier, I do think about it, but the thing is that there's a wide breadth of music out there. There's something for everybody. This is my story and how I'm telling it, and I know that there are a lot of people who it will resonate with. Southern Man in particular, I've had comments not so much about that song is it's got a lot of Christian overtones, but they're more, people get pissy about it, like the Southern Man. Why can't it be the Northern Man or whatever, or maybe it's the woman, Southern woman. I'm like, you're missing the point. The point of that song is really that I had this, the way that song came about. And if you listen to the song, I remember, and when I was a little boy, sitting on my great grandfather's farm in North Carolina, and we would have family reunions, and we had pig pickings in North Carolina. You're smoking a whole pig, it's good eating, and then afterwards all the men sit around and talk. Mm-hmm. And I remember being very, very little, sitting on those old metal chairs that the paint was always chipping off of and rubbing off the clothes,
Very familiar.
I remember sitting on those chairs and listening to them talk about life and their own experiences. And I remember even then at a young age, being fascinated and trying to pick up on the things that they were saying and being inspired by a lot of things that they were saying. And also, you know, kind of like when you're reading a book and you conjure the image of what you're reading in your head. It's the same way. When I was a kid, I would listen to those stories and I would try to put myself, but it was just the adages too, you know, the anecdotes that they had, the jokes. That's where that song comes from. And so again, it's Honeycutt Southern. I'm Michael Honeycutt. This is how I see life, and I'm just inviting you in. Now, I'm not trying to alienate anybody. You can pull meanings from songs, and you can pull a song, and somebody will have a story that they attach to it, and it'll be different from somebody else's, and that's great. And I want that. But to answer your question more succinctly, I'm writing about my personal experience, and I have to be authentic. If we're going to use a buzzword, I have to be authentic to who I am and tell the story, because frankly, it wouldn't be as compelling any other way. And that's what I learned from marketing too, right? I have to be authentic to the product. The product is the music in this case. And when I'm putting the music out there and when I go perform it, I got to make you believe it. And you can believe it because it's true. It's real. You know.
Let me ask you, what do you find are the biggest misconceptions around Honeycutt Southern?
Well, one, I think in the name, right? I think a lot of people like, oh, it's Southern. Or it's Southern rock, you know, or it'll bleed country, or, I mean, obviously I have a drawl in my voice that's not, it's from the Appalachians, you know, and the North Carolina region that I'm not ashamed of. But I think a lot of people, they think, well, it's just going to be Southern rock, and they kind of throw you into this genre of just, you know, your legacy Southern rock bands. You can name 100 of them. While that is true, that we do there's going to be a lot of that influence there. It's not just Southern rock. I mean, I try to take people on a musical roller coaster. You could listen to a song and you'll hear something you're like, man, that sounds like something Skinner or Blackfoot would play. And then I might take you a little bit further and you say, well, that sounds like Stone Temple Pilots. Or I might take you a little bit further and you're like, man, that sounds like, you know, Earth, Wind, and Fire. I mean, you know, I'm gonna take you on a journey because that was me. That's what I've done. So I guess the misconception is reading it right off the bat. If it just being Southern rock, there's a lot of influences coming in that I think it's unique. And from song to song, you're going to hear different things.
Right now, I'm looking up Honeycutt Southern right now, and you guys are just all over the internet. I mean, really.
All you got to do is Google it.
That's all you got to do. That's all I did. I put in Honeycutt Southern, and you guys are everywhere. In fact, I gotta show this. I'm so proud of this. Hold on. Oh shoot, 2 shirts that I'm wearing out. The Honeycutt Southern, if you can see it, that stupid blur I got on my thing. The Honeycutt Southern, Fly Me Courageous, and the Honeycutt Southern. Oh, I got, because, you know, I only wear black, right? So, you know, me and Johnny Cash.
I love it.
Now, folks can get those shirts
they can
on your website, or they can definitely get them at your show.
Yeah, they can purchase them honeycuttsouthern.com. You can also buy them directly off our Facebook. It'll link you right to the web store. But it also, if you're in the Houston area or in around where we're playing, we'll have all the merch set up at the table. You can buy them directly from us, and we'd love to sit down and get to know you.
I got to tell you, I love that last setup y'all had at your last show, where everything was hung up and the table just looked wonderful. And that's another thing. You guys make yourself available. Like, you make at a show, you deliberately make yourself available. You're not, scurrying back to the green room or going backstage. You're out there pressing the flesh.
Again, and we'll go back to relationships. I mean, again, you just never know. And I hate to sound like I'm just being opportunistic, but really, I'm not looking to gain anything. A lot of times I just love hearing and connecting with people. When we go to gigs, and I mean, all the time, every gig, you're going to meet somebody who I'm fortunate enough, either they're touched by the music or they enjoyed some aspect of the performance. And then, then there's a conversation spurred from it. And you sit there and you might have a drink with them, and now all of a sudden you've got a friend. It's pretty amazing to connect with people and how music does that. I mean, just going across barriers, because all different walks of life come into these places that we play. And it's quite amazing to meet people that you otherwise probably never would have.
You never would have met.
Yeah.
I mean, it is absolutely incredible. And, again, we're going to have links to all of your, where people can find you and stuff like that. You're getting to the point now where you're sort of graduating from the sort of the local Houston area, and playing all around Texas. You've been invited to, y'all have a gig at the House of Blues. When is that show?
It's July 21st. Yeah.
July 21st, and you're out there building these relationships with people. There's places in Los Angeles, and just at iconic venues that just really amazing. How, as you guys grow, here we are. Okay, so I'm looking at this. It's in the Item from Huntsville.
Yeah, the paper wrote about us. Yeah,
I just love it. I just absolutely love it. What I love what you meeting my bandmates was fate. We all have a full-throated sound with our harmonies. I mean, you're the type of guy that deflects a lot of praise. You know what I'm saying? Even in this interview, I mean, you're talking about your story, but you're also saying, how many people influenced you and all of this kind of stuff. I think that's really remarkable. What's the reaction been, sort of out in the wild, if you will, to your songs, particularly around people that don't know who you are or haven't met you yet?
Yeah, sure. I think most of them are just kind of taken back, by the music. Again, I think the music that I write has a sweet cross section that it appeals to a diverse group of people. The demographic is all over, right? And so older people can hear a sound and they're like, wow, this harkens back to music that I used to listen to or is really still popular today. Younger people who may not listen to that music, listen to something else, they'll catch on to something else. It could be something that I say, or it could be a simple guitar riff that they just think is really good or whatever. It's been really overwhelmingly positive because, again, going back to sort of when you ask me what's a misconception, or I think people try to pigeonhole me and, they want to peg you as something, but I'm going to go right back to where I was before. God didn't, and I'm going to say this for everybody, there's no label that you're going to be able to slap on me and say, there, that's done. Yeah. I won't allow it. God won't allow it. we're all created in his image in such a way that there are no copies. And I just believe that if I'm just true to myself, is what we've been talking about, and what I'm writing about in my music, that's going to shine through. And people are just going to be, I think it's just a little mysterious and it's intriguing to them. They're just trying to figure out. And to be honest with you, I don't really know a lot of times if people really know what it is. I think a lot of times it could be the Spirit talking to them through the song. You know, it could be something that I've said in a lyric where people are like, what did he just say there? You know, and they're like, is this a, you know, it goes back to like, gets their gears turning. Like, is this a Christian message? You know, or what's he trying to say here? But really,
well, I mean,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, you know, Christy Stevens says that, you know, your songwriting skills and the music, you know, hits a sweet spot between the past and the present.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's hard to put, like I said, people right now are hungry for the truth, not just truth, but for fact. Right. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this music is both, you know, and it's just, it's not your truth. It's the truth, you know, and that hits people really in a way that they don't, because everybody's used to being lied to so much. So now this is hitting them in a way that is like, wow. And sometimes people can't put their finger on it, but you know what it is. I know what it is.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so I wanted to ask you this too. And I'm just going to ask it. So you are a Christian in a very secular world.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What's that like?
Oh,
and how do you deal with it? Or is there anything to really deal with?
Well, there's a lot to contend with. I mean, a lot of things that if you're a Christian, you know that there are forces that you cannot see, but you feel that are working against you. And unfortunately, there's really no going around it. You just got to go through it. But you know, like the foot did to the serpent, you're just going to have to step on it and keep going, man. And just know that that thing might bite, you know, but it's going to catch this heel, you know? And so the thing is, I just keep walking. I think again, and I think you've said it, and my current bassist, Mike Ross, says it all the time. He says, Mike, you got to be undeniable. You know, that's what he keeps saying. Be undeniable, be undeniable. And I think that's what I work on. And I remember that I thank him for saying that. Sometimes it's the simplest words and you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Sure.
Being undeniable, being real, and continuing to show people like, hey, this is who I am. This is my brand. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to take it back to marketing. And with branding is a lot of work. When you're starting from nothing and you realize that there are companies like Samsung who spends $100 million on ads a month on Google, you know, they're building a brand and they're investing in their brand. And let me tell you something, they're doing that and they're getting a return on it, right? They wouldn't be doing it. They're building a brand. It's the same thing with who you are. And then with this band, I'm trying to build a brand. And so I got to be everywhere and I've got to be undeniable. But part of that is being authentic and continuing to do what I do, not straying from my beliefs and how I write and the music that I'm playing, and just being consistent. Being in marketing world, we say that's being on brand. So you're consistent across all platforms. And that's what I try to be. And again, I think by doing that, it's that recognition, that repetition over and over and over again, that people are like, man, there's got to be something there. They just won't go away, you know? Because I think ideally they want to push you out. And I think that's sort of the nature of the music business, is that, I mean, ain't nobody looking to hold your hand and pull you up. They're looking to push you down and protect what they have.
Right.
And so in order to fight through, you've got to prove that you're willing to put through the fight, or to put up with the fight and to push through.
I love that. I love that. I absolutely love that. Well, Mike, we're going to take one more break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about where people can find you, and just more about Honeycutt Southern and Mike Honeycutt. So everybody stick with us. We will be right back.
Attention lawyers. Are you tired of wasting thousands of dollars in billboards, magazines, and more with little results? If so, we can help you save big. Did you know that a powerful video can be used on practically any platform and get you more clients than just one billboard alone? Visit our website at whitehuskyfilms.com. Call or text us today to receive a limited time offer. Take advantage of this one while it's here. It won't last long.
Everybody, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. Listen, we have a new guest coming on with Mike. Teddy, welcome to Honeycutt Southern. Oh my gosh, that dog. Oh, I mean, is he real?
Oh man, you know, he has been awesome. I've only had him, I think he's only been home for about a week and a half, and I mean, he just
really. So is he a rescue?
No, Peter, don't come for me.
Oh shit.
Don't come for me, Peter. No, you know what's funny? All of my puppies have been Craigslist puppies. Crazy enough, they've been Craigslist rescue puppies, except for this guy. We got him from a breeder. I'd always wanted a golden doodle. And,
okay. My mom's got one of those, but hers is black.
Yeah.
They're great dogs.
Mini golden doodle. He is so smart.
Oh, I just love him.
and he's super calm. Hey, Teddy.
Oh, he's amazing. I love him. I absolutely love him. Man, Mike, I've just been so blessed, to have you on the show. Really. I mean, so there's so much to your story that we're not even touching, really, but at the end of the day, it boils down to, just being your authentic self, making relationships, and, not conforming really. If that makes sense,
Yeah.
There's so much to glean from that, to where, you can be yourself and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. Just be you. And that's where, this music that you're able to write, comes from. What's next? What's next for Honeycutt Southern?
Yeah, so we're continuing to book shows. We'll be continuing to release more music. We've been on a cadence of just releasing music about every few months, just to keep something new out there in this new ADD world we live in. People, they consume media so fast. But yeah, so we record music and we release it out there. Of course, we're very active on social, but playing shows is also a must, but also figuring different ways how we can connect with the audience. And so even if you're not in a city that we're playing in, that you can be connected with us. And again, going back to that authenticity and kind of giving you behind the scenes, behind the curtain look at our life and our journeys. Because not just me, all of the players I play with, they've got stories and unique journeys and how we all came. I said it in the 12th Street, it was fate,
Yeah.
kind of run into each other. And again, it's all about relationships. I wouldn't have met those guys if I hadn't been at played with, a specific show with them, talked to them, got to know them and figured out the type of men that they are. So that opened the door for other opportunities.
Well, really, I mean, it goes back to, I mean, I just love it. I keep going back to that when that pastor just asked, why are you so happy, and now your favorite, your sports hero is Michael Jordan. I've noticed every show you play, you got some J's on, you got the Jordan poster in the back, which that's just an iconic, iconic poster. Now, I don't know, I wasn't going to bring this up, but now you've actually met Michael.
Yeah, I did a long time ago at a celebrity golf classic he had in Greenville, North Carolina. He had it's a charity thing he did. And he and Charles Barkley and a number of musicians were there, a number of different athletes, but they had, auctions and stuff, but he would hold these, and I believe he probably still does do this, but yeah, I met him and it was a really, really crazy story, how I met him. So really crazy story, but
you said something to him. Was it in the hotel? Or there was he was going somewhere and there was all this crowd of people.
Yeah.
And go ahead with that.
Yeah, no. So the idea, I can't take full credit. I never take full credit for things that are not mine. But at the time, my mother had an idea. At the time, he had small children because this was early night. My mother had this idea, how do you cut through the noise, right? And I'm drawing too many parallels into the work world, right? And in the music world, it's the same way. It was like, how do you stand out? And so my mom just, I remember we went to like a drugstore and she got this golf club filled with candy. And she said, Mike, when he comes in, because she knew where he was going to come in, the back entrance to this hotel. And so when he comes in, you're going to take this golf club of candy and say to give it to his kid. And at the time, it might have just been Marcus, or he might have only had one around at the time. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. And it was crazy because I remember going through and security guards were trying to brush me away. And then I reached out with that golf club that filled with candy, and he saw it. And I said what I said. And he took it and he said, thank you. And then the next day on the golf course, I remember standing behind the rope. Of course, everybody wanted to be where he was. And he recognized me.
You're standing behind the rope. Now, I mean, to give everybody a picture of this, and I'm sure if anybody has seen the golf class or whatever, there's a rope and there's a ton of people, and you kind of follow the players as they go along. And here you are, you somehow you got up to the front, and he looks back and he recognized you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really something, he recognized you.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Did that sort of, that help solidify him as your guy?
Oh yeah. I mean, of course at that time in my life, I was so young. I mean, I couldn't have been but 8 or 9 years old. And I think he was probably thinking like, that was such a mature thing for this little boy to do, to try to do that. It probably just took it by surprise. But of course, the fact that it was, if I may, just an unorthodox way of getting somebody's attention. It was harmless, but it wasn't the typical like, hey, can I get your autograph? Hey, can I do this? Because while I was there that weekend, I mean, there was tons of that, right? I mean, tons of people who obviously want to shake his hand, want to take a picture, or want to get his autograph. But what did I do? And what did my mother actually give me the idea with? Create an emotional tie. I brought it to his kid, right? It's the same thing you do in marketing. That's how I started this conversation. I have to create an emotional tie to you to where it'll stick. And now all of a sudden, just like with the music and what I'm talking about, if I can create an emotion, if I can evoke an emotional reaction, now you remember me. Now, whatever I'm doing, the product I'm marketing or whatever, the music I'm writing, you're listening to, now it's connecting with you.
Well, and the cool thing is that, you know, I love that your motivation is to tell the story, you know, and I just love that. I absolutely love that. Now, people can find you at honeycuttsouthern.com. Again, you can go to Facebook. Was it /Honeycutt Southern?
Yeah, it's Facebook / Honeycutt Southern. We're also on Instagram.
Instagram,
Twitter,
TikTok. Your Honeycutt Southern TX.
Yeah, so I think Instagram is Honeycutt Southern TX. TikTok is Honeycutt Southern.
Oh, okay. I got that mixed up. Sorry.
Yeah. But if you Google, if you just type in Honeycutt Southern in Google, on the right hand side, there's like all of our socials.
I'm telling you, I just did that, and it's just absolutely. I'm just gonna go Honeycutt. There you go. Wait, there you go, Honeycutt Southern. And man, you got Pandora, YouTube, Spotify. You know, you guys are absolutely everywhere. For people getting into, you know, starting their journey as a professional, you know, maybe even starting a band, because, you know, you guys keep graduating up, you know, you're going from a local, you're going to a regional, you know, and now you're heading into a national. What advice would you give for people that are starting their professional journey and, you know, that kind of don't know what they're going to do, but they know they got to do something?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think I don't know how to make it into one. I think the biggest thing that has benefited me is just sort of being receptive and open to learn. Because you might fall into something that you didn't know that you liked or that you might be really good at. But I think when you're receptive and you're open to learn versus being closed-mindedness and being bullheaded, because, you know, I see it a lot and especially the kids who are my age that I graduated with, they had this vision for their life. And if it didn't go that way, they were going to be frustrated and they were going to quit, you know, or they didn't know how to adapt. When you're receptive and you're open, you're adaptable, right? You're always growing, you're learning. And that opens up opportunities just by doing that, because people see it. And it's the same thing that I've gone through in my life, just being open. When you're open, you're also admitting that you don't know everything, right? And so then you're approachable. And so when you're approachable, then people want to talk to you. And it gets back to that relationship thing I was talking about, right? So I guess in summation, it would just be being open, receptive, however you want to say it, semantics, but being receptive to learning and getting better and keeping yourself open to a different idea or a different opportunity that might benefit you.
I love that. And then, you know, learn what nascent means.
You know, I mean, look, talk about gatekeeping and copy. I mean,
right. Yeah. To let everybody know what we're talking about, a friend of mine showed me a job description, and I mean, it was the most pretentious thing I've ever seen in my life, using the word nascent. I mean, and it's fine.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, so, you know, I'm in marketing, right? So I'm always digesting content. If you look at the trend now, and it's really interesting, a lot of the best content, or the content that's getting the most views, has low production value. It's very raw, you know, because people want to see the real. You know, what
Right.
we talked about earlier, they want to know what's going on real. Like we've had reality TV for quite some time, but we know that even that is produced, right?
Heavily
You know,
produced. Yeah.
I think people now want to hear, and especially these days when people are cut off and they're not having the actual physical relationship, you know, the conversations that people back when used to have, you're looking for another medium so you can have that real human, you know, that's the buzz, that's the key word, that human experience that you can't get by watching some overly produced, you know, in the marketing world, it's okay to have corporate stuff. You're going to have corporate stuff. It's going to be super polished and
Sure.
it's going to be what it is. But there also needs to be the other vein where it's real and authentic and it's true to the vision of one, what you're trying to sell and the people that you're trying to recruit. Yeah.
I love that. Would this be correct if I said I really like the nascent purchase of your nascent guitar? It filled me with nascent emotions that I wasn't quite ready to handle.
It was unbridled joy.
Well, it certainly was nascent.
It was something you had never felt before. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt it a long time ago. It was very,
yeah.
I got to tell you, I got to tell you, I love your guitar collection, man.
Hey,
that is one heck of a collection. And as a fellow Gibson guy, I appreciate that. I just
realized I need to turn them around because they're all facing the other way.
Yeah, but that adds to the mystery.
Yeah.
That adds to the, you know what I mean? That is just phenomenal.
Yeah, they're my babies. I grew up always wanting a Les Paul. I never could afford one. They're always been expensive and they're even more expensive now. And of course, having nothing against Epiphone, because I'd love for Epiphone to cut me a deal.
Oh, Epiphone's great. Epiphone
is great. I always wanted the Gibson script, right, on the headstock. And I remember, you know, just those were the guitars that were at the top of the wall. But when you went into the music store, you know.
That's right.
But the other guitar that I always gravitated towards was the Explorer, that wild design, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And
well, who didn't? I mean, I remember watching Hetfield, you know, with his, and I mean, it's just, that's just, man, I can see it right now. You know, and he's doing his thing, and it was awesome, man.
Oh man, they're just great guitars, and what's amazing about it is they're super balanced. Guitar nerds will know what I'm talking about. You know, they just kind of just hang perfect. You know, there's guitars that have dive. You know, there's SGs that'll dive. There's Les Pauls that are like weighing on your back. You know.
Oh yeah.
Floors are just. It's like there they are. Now they are unwieldy because you've got. It's like I always tell people, it's like carrying around a coffee table. So you've got to watch what you're moving.
Hell of a coffee table, I'll tell you that.
But I love them. I love them.
Mike, it has been an absolutely unbridled joy. I want, you know, please come on again. You have an open door anytime you want to come on Work Your Career Wednesday. You are more than welcome. Thank you so much for taking some time and talking to us today. Just fascinating journey.
Thank you for the opportunity, Brad. And I know that although you are in the nascent stages of Work Your Career, I know that this is going to be extremely fruitful and it's already a tremendous success. I know it's already touching many people, and it's a great thing that you're doing. Super proud of you, brother. Thanks, man. And glad to be here and help you out and do whatever I can.
Man, I appreciate you, man. I really do.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Michael Honeycutt's story, it just blesses me. You know, he's a friend of mine, and I really wanted you guys to hear his story, to be as inspired by it as I've been. And you know what? Really, his story can be found all in his music. His spiritual foundation is strong. He just, what I love about it is he accredits everything to the Lord, and really at the end of the day, that's all we got. And I think for anybody out there in a situation where you feel like the doors are being closed, you feel like things aren't going right, don't give up. That's the key. Don't give up, because if you're looking for something and it hasn't come around yet, or you thought you're going to land something and it didn't happen, look, it didn't happen for a reason, because the thing that's going to happen is on its way. So I really hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more. We got more exciting shows coming on for season 2, but until then, for everyone at White Husky Films, I am Bradley Clark, telling you that I love you, and God bless you, and let his face shine upon you, and give you great peace. Be excellent to yourself and each other.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Hey, if you like Work Your Career Wednesday and want to be notified every single time we have a new episode, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Smash it. Get a hammer and get it. And
Yeah, that's fine.
Too much?
No, that's fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I love it. People want.
Do you hear Steven in the background? I was just making sure I'm going to be okay. But get that notification going. And hey, we will be letting you know, or I guess YouTube will be letting you know, when the next Work Your Career Wednesday is on. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Man, ding it, ring it, sling it, and bo-bing it. All right? And we will see you soon. Work Your Career Wednesday. Oh, great. I'm glad you stopped by. Be sure to get that subscription bell, and I'll see you there.